Every time I hear Koenigsegg talking about what they have accomplished since their very first prototype back in 1996, I am blown away. And now we have a new video with Mr. Christian von Koenigsegg himself talking about the drivetrain and the technology that Koenigsegg is putting into their cars. And I want to show you this video and go through it with you and then show you the 2004 CCR Koenigsegg all the way down to the 2023 CC850 and show you the evolution and how they came to their design DNA. And the interesting thing here is, I feel like Koenigsegg, even from the first prototype back in 1996, they had a clear identity of what they wanted the car to look like. And it still looks like that in 2023, even though in a much more modern way. So first of all, let's check out this video and
see what they have
to say.
So here we are at the Gripen Atelier, where we're building the beautiful Gemera. And today I'm going to show you a little bit.
First of all, can I just say that every time I hear Christian von Koenigsegg talk, he feels like the most approachable CEO of a supercar company. He just feels like a very nice guy that you just want to sit down and have a coffee with.
Under the skin of the car, the drivetrain of the Gemera, the history behind it, and how it all came together.
I'm also going to let you know the names of these cars and what they mean in Swedish, because you can pronounce it, everybody pronounces it in an English pronunciation, of course, but when you dissect the words and what they mean in Swedish, it sort of makes sense.
This was completely revolutionary when we decided to do it, to remove actual shifting mechanisms from a gearbox, compounding gears 3x3, getting into 9 gears, using these extremely small hydraulic clutches, avoiding flywheel to have the fastest revving engine in any production car and the fastest shifting gearbox in any production car.
The crazy thing here, sorry if I pause the video, but I just have to say, the crazy thing here, he started in 1996 with the first prototype. He got a loan for, I do believe, $6 million to start up the entire company, and with that he sketched out himself what the first Koenigsegg would look like, the prototype, and that DNA has now transformed up to 2025 in the new models as well. And for a Swedish company to make a car like this, it just, if you've ever been to Sweden, Swedes are sort of reserved. We don't want to stick out too much. We want to take it easy, blend in, and then we come out with Koenigsegg. And that is what I love about this car company and the idea. And then the fact that they're building and engineering all of these things, the drivetrains in-house and the engines as well, is just, I think it's unheard of. Even Pagani is still using Mercedes AMG engines. They don't make their own engines, but here we're making everything from scratch. And it makes me very, very proud to see.
Some of you have heard the shifts of the Esco and the revs of the Esco.
Sounds pretty good.
Fast and exciting that is. And then we have 9 gears, so you can cruise on the highway at very low RPM very comfortably, and then shift down 3-4 gears at the snap of your fingers, faster than any other gearbox before it, and get straight into the power band. It just transforms the way our V8 engine feels like. It just comes, it's an otherworldly experience, I would say, and just talk to the people who've experienced it, and I'm sure they will tell the same story.
I wish I get to experience that someday.
It's extremely compact. I mean, for a 9-speed gearbox plus a reverse, actually then 10 gears in a way with the reverse, you see how compact and short it is. It means that, and this is the center of the rear wheel. The rear wheel is back to here. It's all within the kind of the center of the car. Nothing sticks out back. It just gives this mass concentration, which is amazing, and very, very low center of gravity.
So I wonder where they find their engineers. We hear this saying that German engineering is probably the best, but I think we should switch that up to Swedish engineering is definitely up there. Just look at these things that they're creating in this small in-house.
Here is the center of the
hangar,
the crankshaft. This is the input shaft of the gearbox. This is equal to the bottom of the car. So this is how close the crankshaft is to the bottom of the car. I'm pretty sure it's the lowest mounted engine in any production car, and we can do that as we have no flywheel that take up so rotational space. And this is the center of the rear wheel. You can see the height difference here. So we had this amazing technology that panned out better than we could ever hope, and creating a character of a car that is, I have no better way of describing it than otherworldly compared to anything else I've driven. And we were developing the Gemera and had a completely different drivetrain there with direct drive and one gear, which is amazing in its own right. And as many of you remember, we managed to squeeze in the V8 and the LST transmission, turning it into the Lightspeed tourbillon transmission in no space. I mean, we have a rear seat in the Gemera. And we managed to maintain the luggage space and everything else, even though we completely transformed the technology base in the car. And as you can see, it looks quite different. It's very different looking, actually. But internally, in this section here, it's actually very, very similar internals. A lot of lessons learned, clutch technology, gear technology, everything is very, very similar in this center section. But as the engine sat closer to the rear axle, I mean, you have the output shafts of the drive shafts here, and the engine sitting in here, we had to come up with this never seen before type of transmission. Also, considering we have four-wheel drive, we have an output shaft here as well for the front axle. So this really took some brainstorming to wrap our head around and to actually wrap the gearbox around the engine, so to speak. It is really shrink wrapped, as you see. It's a wild construction.
The Gemera or Gemera is such a compact design. It's insane to think about how much they crammed into the proportions of the Gemera. And I love how they did the luggage as well. I think they just sort of fitted the luggage perfectly in some storage compartment inside of the car. It's just a beautifully engineered, and also the exterior design just looks fantastic. Gonna have a look at that in the side view in just a minute.
In many ways. And but fundamentally, it works the same way in the gearbox itself. It's 9 forward gears, same gear ratios. Actually, no reverse. We don't have a reverse here. It's electric reverse on the front axle. So we could save 1 gear and 1 clutch. So actually this one only has 6 clutches instead of 7. 3 times 3, 9 gears going forward. In compound, 3 times 3. No reverse clutch, no reverse gear. No starter motor as that one actually has, because we're starting with the electrical motor on the drivetrain. We actually don't have a differential on this one as well. You can see the differential here on the LST. Here we just have a bevel gear, and then we have a shaft going out here, and then we have a hydraulic clutch here and then hydraulic clutch here before the cassettes, as we call them, the side transmission that moves the power from in front of the engine to straight over the axle of the engine, the middle of the engine. And then we can torque vector with cornering, and in combination with a custom developed braking system, we can also torque vector with the brakes. We have full torque vectoring rear axle without any electrical motors or anything, which is quite amazing. And equally, if you come over around here, you can see the height of the crankshaft is as low as in the Jesko from the ground, compared to the output flange to the drive shaft, which now sits kind of on the middle of the engine, as you can see over here. So here we have the Lightspeed tourbillon transmission with the hot V8 engine, and here you can see why we had to completely rebuild the engine to have the exhaust in the center, not on the side, because this gearbox cassette is
I love the small details that they have the logo on the engine itself. It just looks beautiful. You have the gold sort of coating on top for the heat as well, similar to what we had in the McLaren F1 back in the day.
Right next to the cylinder head. You can also see how sunken in the engine is compared to the center of the rear wheel. And you saw the output shaft from the gearbox comes out here into a rotating carbon fiber prop shaft that sits in this carbon fiber torque tube that translates the power from the engine to the front axle, which has 2 hydraulic clutches and a bevel gear, no differential, so we get torque vectoring here as well, but we get augmentation of our dark matter electrical motor. We have up to 1250 newton meters of torque and 600 kilowatt from this compact beast of an electrical motor that we developed. 50 newton meters of torque. We have Yeah, up to 1250 newton meters of torque and 600 kilowatt from this compact beast of an electrical motor that we develop in-house. We call this the Bulldog. Why the Bulldog?
It's a good name.
Well, it's very compact and very powerful, like a Bulldog. The size and weight of this compared to the output is unparalleled. It's just tiny and lightweight. So, what does this dark matter do here in this car? Well, it does several things. I already mentioned, when you reverse, we open up a clutch here and we spin the front axle in reverse and the rear of the gearbox idles. What is very cool here, and which is the first in the world, is that with one electrical motor in a four-wheel drive car, we can have four-wheel drive torque vectoring in pure EV mode with one electrical motor. As we have a shaft going out here to the the bevel gear to the clutches for torque vectoring, together with the brakes. Carbon prop shaft through the torque tube can send the power of the electrical motor through the transmission out to the rear wheels with or without the combustion engine running.
So that little Bulldog engine in the front there can drive all four wheels, which is pretty
cool. We can also choose to run the combustion engine only on the front wheel with torque vectoring, only on the rear wheels with torque vectoring, or four-wheel drive torque vectoring with only the combustion engine, or have them working together for hybrid drive, four-wheel drive, four-wheel torque vectoring with one electrical motor and one combustion engine. That has never happened before. So it's about minimizing complexity and components and get maximum functionality out of this. So even though there are a lot of components, it's much less than you would normally need to get this type of functionality.
Just looking around at that area, that hangar that they're in, it looks like it would be a pretty sweet place to work at. If they're looking for a designer, I might just quit YouTube and go back to Sweden and work for Koenigsegg, because I just love this company and everything they're doing. Specifically when we have stuff like this. I mean, some crazy engineering feats that we haven't seen before from any, not even the big manufacturers are doing stuff like this. So I think that's also something about smaller companies. You're a lot more nimble when it comes to engineering and ingenuity and coming up with new ideas, and you can move quicker when you're a smaller company. So I do think that is a huge benefit for Koenigsegg to create something like this and experiment a lot with different powertrains that they're doing right now.
Meaning full functionality, anything you can dream of. That's what really sets this drivetrain apart, and it makes me so proud to be able to show it to you in this finished state going into one of our test cars. And now we're going to have a look at this similar type of drivetrain, a test Gemera drivetrain on our four-wheel drive, four-wheel torque vectoring chassis dyno. So follow me. But right now we have put the complete Gemera drivetrain on sort of a bed that we can roll in and out. So we can drive the drivetrain like it's in a car in different driving scenarios without the actual car. So it's really easy to work with and change things and try things.
You kind of need to have this type of drivetrain. Just imagine, I mean, Sweden, it gets colder, it snows a lot, and if you can have torque vectoring on every single wheel independently, and you can also have it just being, electrically powered, I think if you put some winter tires on this Gemera, it's going to be a proper winter car and super grippy, and I don't think you're going to have any problems at all just driving in the snow with a powertrain like this.
Around, and it's a setup we came up with a few years ago, and it's been very, very helpful for our development.
With that said, let's jump in here to Photoshop, and I want to show you just how cool this is, how they have gone from the original Koenigsegg and then evolved the design, sort of like a Porsche 911 style, but in a much faster pace, of course. The first Koenigsegg coming out in 1996, and they just put it together really quick because they wanted to have a prototype. And then I do believe the first customer car was around 2004, so it took a lot of testing of the original prototype before they could actually put it into production. So check this out. Here we have some of the, I didn't put all the models in here, but some of the most important ones are in here for sure. From the 2004 CCR all the way down to the 2023. It has to be my favorite Koenigsegg of all time, the CC850, because I'm going to talk about that when we get to that car. I'm going to try and contain myself before we get to that point. So looking at the 2004 CCR, this already, and this is very, very hard to do as a brand new company, to dial in your design DNA, but there is no mistaking these cars for anything else than a Koenigsegg. And I do like that we have this visor design that we have right here, and this was part of the original prototype from 1996. We have this huge intake in the lower section, and then also Koenigsegg they've always played around a lot with graphic design. You can see that we still have the original 2004 CCR sort of proportions, but the graphics change very much over the years and into different models. We also have this very sort of cut off rear end, and the wheelbase looks great as well. Mid-engine car, of course, with the greenhouse pulled forward like this, and it's just a very simple and very stylistic, minimal design, I would say, for the original 2004 CCR. Now looking into the Agera here, I remember I saw this when it was unveiled in the booth in 2011 in Geneva. I was there to check out with my university in Italy. We went to Geneva. I saw the launch of the Aventador, and also, of course, I was more excited about this, the Agera at that time. So looking at this, we still have the same styling as we have in the original, but you can see that it's starting to get more refined. It just gets more and more refined for every model, even though the base styling is sort of the same. We still have this intake in the lower section, still have this graphic here, this bar of black graphic. You have Agera here. Now the name Agera itself, Agera in Swedish means to act. So they take just one word, sort of Swedish words, and just put them as the model names for their cars, and I think that's really cool. We still have, of course, the visor design. This is a design feature that I don't believe ever is going to go away from Koenigsegg, because it is such a huge part of their design DNA to have this sort of egg-like top, and then you have the visor design inside. We have the wheels here as well. I do believe these are carbon fiber wheels. We have a new slot here, probably to remove some air pressure for the front wheelhouse. Now, this is an evolution of the Agera down here. You can see again, it's the same sort of styling, but we're playing around with graphics, and now we have this piece. The greenhouse looks completely different here, but you can see that the window is still in the same position as we have in the original Agera, but now we have some carbon fiber pieces here, and this is called the 1-to-1, meaning that the horsepower and the weight in kilos, the ratio between them are 1-to-1, which is pretty crazy to think about. And we have more graphic down here, still have the same intake again, living on since 2004, 10 years later. We still have this intake in the lower section, carbon fiber wheels, massive wing in the rear end. This is a proper park bench back there. We also have a hood scoop now, but everything else looks pretty much very, very similar to what we have in the Agera. And then in 2015, a year after the 1-to-1 was unveiled, they dropped a completely new model, and that is the Regera. Now in Swedish, Regera means to govern or to rule. I think it's a very cool name. It looks very nice as well. We have a completely new rear end here. You can see that the rear end looks almost like a long tail now, sort of McLaren Speedtail or something like that. It's a lot more stretched out. And that is of course to help with the top speed. We have the similar intake here, but it has a new design to it, and I do love all these panels that goes on the outside of the car. And look at how short the overhang is in the front end. It dips very harshly in the front. Not a huge fan of these wheels, if I'm honest. I've never been a fan of sort of three-spoke design. It reminds me of the old Saab 900 wheels, the turbo wheels, which looked decent, on a Saab, but on a hypercar like this, I'm not so sure. But they are very cool because they're in carbon fiber, as you can see. I also love that we have all these, almost aviation style for the air outlets in the rear end, looking very, very sleek and super clean design. Again, so then we have the Jesko, the 2020 Jesko, looking extremely aggressive compared to the Agera, for example. Now, I think this is the first time where I feel like Koenigsegg has reached level of maturity when it comes to the design, because everything here looks like every little detail in this car looks like it has a purpose, and we still keep the original Koenigsegg DNA. You can see the visor design, you can see the egg shape on top, and the park bench right here in the back looking very clean. But now we have all these more advanced surface styling, which I think looks very, very nice. Massive intake in the side. We have the wheels here as well. I would like to see a silver rim going around here to connect these spokes, but other than that, they look pretty good to me. Overall, this looks like a very grown-up design, and feels in 2020 is the first time I felt that Koenigsegg are really now starting to really figure out how they want to move on with their design DNA. And of course, 2021 Gemera. Gemera, the name Gemera in Swedish means give more. And I do think that has to do with this, in fact, being a 4-seater. And look at this. Look at the comparison between the wheelbase of a 2-seater and then you have the 4-seater. Look at how much more stretched out this wheelbase is. But it's still a super clean design, and nothing is taken away from the original DNA. I love the rear spoiler ducktail that we have in the rear. Taillights look fantastic as well. And these are the wheels that I would want to see on the Riera, for example. Just put the Gemera wheels onto the Riera, and we have some proper looking wheels there. Still have the visor design, as you can see, and this is the engineering that goes into this is just from another world. It feels like a spaceship when you hear the team from Koenigsegg talk about what went into this car when it comes to engineering. And then last but not least, we have the 2023 CC850. Now to me, if we go through this, you can see that it gets a lot, like over the years, it starts with a very, very simple design up here. Clean design, minimalistic design, adding a little bit more feature for the Agera, and then 1-to-1 just becomes crazy cuts in the body. We have the park bench in the back, scoop up top, and graphics all over the place as well, and wings and canards in the front end, and massive diffuser in the rear. So it gets a lot more aggressive as we progress through the years, all the way up to the Esco. But then the Gemera, we're starting to dial it back. We're starting to figure out how we can use aerodynamics without, putting too many wings and fins onto the cars. And I appreciate that, because that shows me that there's a lot of engineering wind tunnel tests that went into this. Even though the Esco Absolute, I mean, the top speed of that is 310 miles per hour. That is 500 kilometers per hour, which is just, it's crazy. It's basically airline speeds. So you got to find the right roads, of course, to test that. But then coming back to the CC850 here, why I love this car is if you look at the first CCR, it is a perfect, absolutely perfect modernization of the CCR up top. We go back to this clean styling, but now we're bringing in this more, all the experience that we've had throughout the decades, and just bringing it in and creating the first car we ever produced into a modern shape. And this is by far the most beautiful Koenigsegg I have ever seen. This is when it comes to the styling, this is just spot on, because it has this simplistic, minimalistic look to it while still retaining the key components of a Koenigsegg intact. We still have this outlet intake in the lower section coming back like we had in 2004. Coming back here in a modern way. We have this side skirt looking very clean, carbon fiber, not too aggressive diffuser, the taillights, the headlights. It's just a stunning looking design, and the wheel design themselves look very, very nice as well. The round, the hollowed out wheels are also sort of a symbol for Koenigsegg. And overall, I just think Koenigsegg is. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to make it as a appreciation video to what the team of Koenigsegg has been, have been able to do throughout the years. This is something that I would never, ever think I would see coming from, Sweden, a small country where the people, as I said, are very conservative usually, and don't really like to stick out. And then we have this anomaly when it comes to design and engineering that definitely puts Sweden on the map. And if I were to pick choose between a Pagani, for example, or a Koenigsegg, I mean, I would 100%, even though I love Pagani as well, but they're still using Mercedes-AMG engines. I do believe they haven't made an in-house engine yet. And I want to support Koenigsegg, even though I don't have the millions of dollars to be able to buy one of these. If I had, though, I would 100% go with this, the 2023 CC850. And I do wish Koenigsegg and the team all the best in the future, and I cannot wait to see what they come up with. If this is how far they come in 34 years or something like that since the first prototype, imagine where they're going to be in another 20 years or so. It's going to be very, very interesting to see.